Hello and welcome to the Next 100 Days podcast. My name is Graham Arrowsmith.
And my name's Kevin Appleby. Now, Graham, we've had a few podcasts where we've talked about investment in real estate, how to get into doing other things on the basis of having a property portfolio, so on and so forth. But today, we're talking the world of real estate systems.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I've got to say, I'm starting this podcast with a pretty close to zero understanding of what this man does. But the beauty of it is that he's a Lancastrian. So by the end of the podcast, I'll probably still not have an idea of what he does. But actually, he's going to make a pretty good case for his company, Yavica, and the things that they do. Here is David Oates.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, you're very welcome. And actually, David, you are very welcome because your software helps people in commercial real estate. But can you sort of unpick that for us and where we're getting it wrong already?
Yeah, no, you've not got anything wrong so far, unusually, for a Yorkshireman.
I started this podcast, so I mean, that counts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I must have got something right, Graham. We're on to episode 400 and what's this one going to be, about 420?
Something like
that. Is it really?
Sorry, we're cutting across you, David.
That's right.
Tell us about commercial real estate.
Been running that long, so I'm
no.
Yeah, let me tell you before I talk about Yavica. Let's just talk a little bit about the real estate industry and the commercial real estate industry, and where systems fit in their life cycle. If you think about the commercial real estate business generally, it's actually a pretty simple business at its highest level. You buy a piece of commercial real estate, you let it out for as much as you buy it for as little as you can, you let it out for as much as you can, and you typically hold it for anywhere from 10 to 20 years, sometimes longer, and then you sell it on for as much as you can get. And that is the entire business model, right?
And we went into that model in quite a lot of detail about 3 podcasts ago.
Right.
We were talking about the real estate market, particularly in New Jersey.
But it was a Soprano episode. I mean, it did look like he was from The Sopranos, but you don't, as it happens. But he did. But anyway, so we have an understanding of sorts, pretty much exactly what you've just said, David.
Yeah. So from a technology standpoint, and the commercial real estate industry has been very slow to adopt technology. In fact, to a certain extent, it still isn't. It lives on Excel. A lot of it lives on Excel, but there's technology to cover everything from sustainability, construction, but where the key piece that we focus on, and one of the key things in the market, is how do you actually manage the financial processes that go with it, which actually are quite complex because you've got debt, you've got equity, you've got standard accounting transactions, you've got lease payments, lease management. There's a whole raft of things that fall into that. And that part, what we would call property management systems, so really financial management systems, has been dominated by 2 players for many years. 2 companies called Yardi and MRI. They've been around for 40 years in some cases. I think Yardi's 40 years old. And they are big businesses. Because of the reluctance to change in our industry, they've managed to carve themselves out probably 90% of the market over time. However, there are challenges with those legacy systems. So they're typically quite closed. MRI grew mainly by acquisition, so there are a whole bunch of products kind of bolted together. And a number of years ago, actually, Microsoft Dynamics, the current version of Dynamics has been out, I don't know, 6-7 years, but even prior to that, it's 14-15 years old. Microsoft Dynamics is what we would know as an ERP system. So enterprise resource planning, but is effectively a financial system. And Yavica, and the history of Yavica is quite interesting, but Yavica as a product was, believe it or not, developed by Logica.
Right.
Remember Logica?
Yes.
Big UK consultancy.
Yes.
who then got bought a number of years ago by CGI. And it was a product that they had. And our CEO, Mads Sorensen, who was an accountant by trade, PwC, then went into a real estate business as CFO. They were looking for a solution. They stumbled across this product. And then Mads actually went to the other side of went to the dark side and joined them. 6-7 years ago, he didn't believe, because they were a consultancy business, they were taking the product forward, and he did a management buyout, and he now owns the company, bought the product out, and formed Yavica as a result. The product was actually called Flex Property. We are effectively the real estate skin for Microsoft Dynamics. So we allow Dynamics to be adapted to the specific requirements of the real estate industry. And right now we are, and we do use this in our tagline, we're revolutionizing the way that property management systems run. Because Microsoft, and I know you have your own views on Microsoft products generally, but Microsoft means that it's one data set. From the front end, from your CRM system, from when you're attracting customers, through to your back-end accounting systems, it's one data set. It's a seamless integration. And actually, Yavica, as I say, provides that real estate focus to the product, but we just look like Dynamics. You don't even see the Yavica name in the product. So that makes it very attractive, particularly as Microsoft are right now probably at the forefront of AI. It makes it a very attractive, future-proof solution for real estate companies. And we're starting to attract more and more big names into our portfolio.
A great explanation, and I'm going to say that I kind of followed most of it, but the if you had to sort of explain it at the sort of 5th grade level, so basically, in other words, in shorter words and clearer sort of understanding for somebody who might be just going into secondary school, how would you describe what service you're offering to somebody who has a big building? That, you know, how would you describe your service? Because it sounds like you've got a bit of software that helps them run their business.
Yeah.
So is there anything else? Give us a little bit more flesh around that, but around those bones, but at my level.
Right. I'll keep it simple. If you think about the life cycle of a building, commercial, let's say it's an office, call it an office block. It's nice and simple.
Yeah.
Every office block has potentially many tenants.
Yeah, got you.
So the Shard in London, for example, Britain's tallest building, I don't know, but has probably got 75 tenants, 100 tenants, maybe more.
Yeah.
Every one of those tenants has a lease.
Right.
And as a result, pays rent on a monthly or quarterly basis. But you know, just imagine it in the same way as a flat, right? You lease a flat, you then pay rent on it.
Yeah.
What our software, a combination of our software and Dynamics does, is from the acquisition of that tenant through to the collection of their money, collection of their bills, we manage the entire bit in between.
Right.
So
is it all about money transfers then?
It's all about accounting, effectively.
Right. Well, no wonder Kevin's salivating, because and I'm confused, because Kevin probably gets all this.
We might have David on the wrong podcast here. Perhaps he should have been a guest on the Grow CFO show, Graham.
He's like a broken record. But okay. So basically, it's about financial transactions and getting money in from people who own who are leasing parts of the building, like the Shard. I get that. I was around when it was getting built, and so I could, every time I went out of London, there was another floor there, sort of thing. So basically, I understand that logic, but does it start perhaps before it was built, and all the sort of stuff that's going into that build, or is it when that guy's taken possession of it and starts to rent it?
At the front end, it will allow you to create tenant portals, sales portals, for example, estate agency type portals,
Okay.
so that you can attract tenants.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Then you can build portals that will keep your tenants happy.
Right.
But ultimately, once you've signed a lease, we will help manage the entire accounting process.
Right.
I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Through to the money arriving as an accounts receivable.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of a really simple way. It's an accounting system for real estate in reality.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the bulk of our users are the finance team.
Right.
But also the asset managers, who are the people that will manage the building.
Right.
They'll make sure they're sweating the asset effectively.
Yeah. And I don't really understand what Microsoft Dynamics is, but is it a sort of a combination of what was their database software as well as their accounting software, and almost like jumbled up together in a
fairly sophisticated way? A good way of describing it. Yeah.
So Microsoft
Dynamics is currently the world's biggest sort of business application.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I've got to say that it's been going for many years, and a lot of customers use it, so it can't be that bad, can it?
No.
So
they're also, as you know, or you probably know, they've just suddenly become the world's biggest company again.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
Endless trillions of dollars.
Yeah. Well, but the good news is that won't last forever. But what can I say? No, seriously, otherwise, what's it called? Bill Gates will be taking out a contract on me. He'll be saying, "Well, it's bloody hell."
I think he's probably past that point now.
Well, he'll be buying up all the Greenland around where I live, and
yes,
putting in robots, or God knows whatever else his plan is. Anyway, but nonetheless, this approach that Yavica is taking, are you up against it? Because if your competitors, let's just say they've kind of stumbled upon the majority of the market, you're the kind of new boys, and you're pushing them out. Are you taking names and winning against them, or is it tough for you to get movement?
No, we absolutely are. We were founded in Denmark. We moved into the UK about three and a half years ago.
Okay.
These are long sales cycles. It typically takes 12 to 18 months to get from an initial inquiry through to a closed deal, because they're very significant value wise, but also it's a big step for a company to rip out a legacy system of this importance. They run their business on these systems, and so therefore it is a long process. We are winning. It's a challenge, as with any relatively young company. But we are winning. We are self-funded. We don't have any investors right now. And we are profitable. We've been growing at about 35% a year, despite the economic downturn. And that growth, we're now at that stage where that growth is starting to really accelerate.
Now, therein, David, lies probably the lessons for our audience. And I very much doubt within the audience of folk listening here, there are many that are in the real estate ownership of the size to be wanting dynamics and your system. But there are many corporate escapees who have gone out of big corporate, started their own company, possibly increasingly these days, rather than consultancy, it's around some kind of software product. Now, hearing a journey like that, where you've effectively bootstrapped the company yourselves, how did that work? How did you successfully grow to the sort of footprint you've got now without needing to go for any funding?
That's a really good question. And the first thing I would say is, and I'm glad we don't have any funding, because I think the last few years, I've been in the property software space for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people go to the wall over the last few years. Because, there's always been this perfect storm of COVID, which then meant that in the commercial real estate space, people didn't go into the office as much. But then there's the economic impact. So our market's been very difficult for 3 or 4 years. And one of the biggest reasons for that actually is real estate companies have been borrowing money at what, 0.25%? They've almost had no cost of debt for years. And it's interesting, I've had this argument with a few people. They're now saying, oh, well, our money costs us 5, 6, 7%. How are we going to survive? Well, hang on a sec. Prior to 2008-9, that was the standard interest rate for years. So we'd forgotten about having a cost of money. So the industry's been in a very difficult position. I think also we fall under, well, we don't really, but there is a whole sector of the software market called PropTech, which is property technology, which has been a lot. I mean, the growth in PropTech and the investment in PropTech from VCs has been huge because they saw it as a great opportunity. The reason a lot of those companies are struggling is they'd created really clever solutions, but they were then looking for a problem to solve. Really great, sexy looking software that was a nice to have. It wasn't a, we have to have it. So one of the reasons that Yavica has been successful is we are addressing a known problem. The two incumbents that we've talked about are pretty inflexible. They are fairly closed systems when everybody now wants openness and ease.
A closed system is what then, David?
Very hard to integrate to.
Integrate with what though?
Oh, other pieces of software. So let me think of a good example that would resonate. Even with Yavica, for example, and Dynamics, we don't have what we would term a treasury system that allows for bank reconciliation and bank transfer, etc. So we integrate with another software company called SKG that does that piece of the puzzle. That's true of virtually every major piece of software. There'll be bits it doesn't do, and you find something that does a very specific job, and you integrate to it.
Yeah.
With closed systems, that integration is quite difficult.
Right.
So that problem has been known for a long time, and forward-thinking CEOs, CFOs are thinking, okay, we need to move away from this, and we need to find a more open system, which Microsoft is. We need to find something that's got really good security, which Microsoft has. It's a stable platform, which Microsoft is, et cetera, et cetera. So, and this was the reason I joined Yavica, to be honest, was I love disruptive technology. I love stuff that's going to disrupt the status quo. And we are in a position where we can genuinely disrupt the status quo with a solution that the market is crying out for, but it takes a long time to make that decision because it's such a big step. So that's why we're not growing at 3, 4, 5, stupid hyper growth rates. But coming back to your question, Kevin, about how do we manage to do it? The answer is actually really simple. We managed our cash flow really carefully. We've not grown in 7 years. We've grown to 150 people, which is great. But if we'd had VC money, and I've seen this lots of times, as I'm sure you have, we'd have probably grown to 300 people or 400 people. Well, that becomes very different. It's a very different argument when you're trying to manage revenues to cover that cost. And all you're doing is losing money every week.
So is there sorry, Kevin, but is there the thing that's going through my mind is that you've got this software, you've got these two big competitors who are slovenly, let's call them. They might not be as people, they might be genuinely interested in their clients and all the rest of that, but they've got a slovenly solution. It's sclerotic, it's a bit old, it's there, but it's built into the way in which we do things around here.
Yeah.
Along comes the new guys from Denmark, and I love Denmark. I mean, worked for Lego for 4 years, and so I have a good sense of Denmark. And you come along, fresh ideas, an open system. So the marketing challenge for me, or the sales challenge for me, is how am I going to displace these people? Who are the people that are most displaceable?
That's a good question, and one we try and solve every day. We're very fortunate at the moment. We're operating off inbound leads, because there's the adage now that nobody buys anything without doing their research first.
Mm-hmm.
You don't
Very
even
true.
go into the market to look for something until you've done your research, which is the power of the internet. Right? There's enough noise coming from both the market itself and our partners, because we have some very strong partners. KPMG, for example, really strong partner. We're talking to PwC. We're obviously partnered with Microsoft themselves.
Yeah.
That gives us enough to feed the organization in terms of inbound leads. Now, that won't last forever.
No.
And while we're of the scale we are, we can live on that basis. We don't need to win that many deals per year.
Right.
Because they're all sizable.
But that keeps you at a nice, comfortable 10 to 15% of the market or less. So the other guys get an extra few years to change their systems to catch up and maybe extend beyond you. So not necessarily a great marketing strategy.
No, it's not. No. But at the moment, because we are managing cash flow as well, it's a marketing strategy that works for us. I was made Chief Revenue Officer about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And part of my role, running sales and marketing, is to accelerate that growth.
Yeah, I can imagine.
In a way that we can afford to do right now. Now,
that makes sense.
I do think we may well need to look at investment over the next 2 to 3 years, because growth costs money. And one of the challenges we face, like any software company, has a long deployment cycle. It can take a year to 2 years to implement the overall process, because you're changing a lot of business processes as well as just putting software in.
Right.
Then your revenue is spread out. If you win a $3 to $5 million contract for delivering a solution, yes, the software gets paid for, but because it's a SaaS model, you recognize it monthly.
Right.
But the project, nobody pays that sort of money up front for a project. It's spread out. So, we have to be careful about how we spend our cash. Right?
Yeah.
But, we may look at investment in the future, and that's a conversation you have to have with the CEO if we want to accelerate that growth faster.
If we gave you a magic wand right now, David, I find this conversation far more interesting now. And I mean, Kevin's probably thinking, I'm just going to go to sleep here because he's going to talk about marketing a little bit. But right. But actually, no, Kevin's quite a good marketer. I mean, a very good marketer. But the point is, magic wand, you've got the magic wand, and you could wave it around for a bit that would create a strategy to sort of pull away from your big competitors, and you're not alone. Other listeners listening to this will have a similar challenge, I'm certain.
Yeah.
You've got that problem. We've kind of got an understanding that it's not like you're selling a bag of sweets. You basically have to sort out over a long period of time changes. But is it necessarily like that? Or has the advent of things like AI potentially shortened the way in which you can transfer from one situation to another?
I think it has. Well, that's not true. I don't think it has yet. I think it is doing. It's going to take time. I think we're all still figuring out how to use AI in the most effective way.
Okay.
But it's no doubt it is going to change it. I'm very interested in understanding how and why we can create leads. And trying to figure out the best way to do that particularly when we have to go from a inbound to an outbound model, I think is a real challenge. But there's one thing that I've always believed with marketing, and I think it is something that a lot of people don't think about. We talk about value propositions. We don't talk about value-based marketing. We don't try and talk to the real the real value that a product or a system or a solution can deliver to a client. And particularly in the current economy, it used to be we could talk about time saving. Most CEOs don't care about time saving. They don't care about nice to haves. All they care about is two things, as far as I can see. Does it save me money or does it make me money?
But your system does both, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
In which case, then where's the problem?
Because articulating it in a way that resonates with the client.
Okay, no, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be trite. I'm trying to understand that. I'm looking at a page on your website here, and it's about Yavica, and you can find out more about Yavica at yavica.com. That's yavica.com, and you've got something which is really quite helpful. I think it'd help if you had a few pictures on there, but nonetheless, it says manage every phase. And like you said right at the beginning, and I've caught up a little bit now with you, David, but basically long-term portfolio optimization all the way through to settlement. You've got different areas in between, including marketing. So basically, and that's obviously for your client. Now, basically, what I'm struggling with is with such a brilliant solution, and I know it's almost so big that it's almost, I think what I'm hearing, it's so overwhelming that it's difficult to get that into an organization who have got something that kind of does it. Mm-hmm. And I don't really want to change it because it's producing me money and it's saving me money, or at least I think it is. But if you can eat away at those extremities, it isn't producing you that much money, and it's definitely costing you money. Then you've got a conversation, haven't you?
You have. We're at the stage, because we are trying to disrupt a market here. We're trying to revolutionize a market. So think about the old terminology from that we've always used in marketing. We're looking for visionaries right now.
Yeah.
We're not at the mass market adoption phase. So when you're looking for visionaries, they're harder to find, right? Mm-hmm. Because you don't know who the visionaries are. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, I've been in the UK property market, software market for a long time, and I know who some of the visionaries are.
Yeah.
We are doing everything we can to talk to those people. Right. But I still don't think that we've quite got our messaging right in terms of really jumping out at those visionaries. As John Smith is saying, I've got to talk to these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
We're almost relying a little bit on word of mouth because we've got a good reputation amongst our clients. But I mean, we're working with a client right now that is making a decision between us and Yardi. And it's kind of on a knife edge because it's a big organization, and of the decision team or the steerco or whatever you want to call it, half of them are, well, why do we need to change? Why do we need to take the risk that we move away from what we've been doing for 20 years? Whereas there's one or two C-level people that are really looking into this going, no, we need to future-proof our business. Yeah. We need to be AI ready. We need to be working with an industry leader in Microsoft, potentially. So you even get those battles internally at prospects. It's not just about having a visionary CEO. You've got to be able to take the rest of the team with you as well.
It's a really meaty marketing problem, Kevin. That's something that I'm sure you've seen in other financial offices and other businesses. Is that right? Is that something that you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things here that I'm finding very interesting from the finance point of view. I can see potentially a great piece of disruptive software. I can see that it's solving a very real problem. I must admit, the thing that's getting me, we talked about open systems earlier, but we're talking about a system that's very much advertised as part of Microsoft Dynamics. Now, my experience is there are other solutions out there, NetSuite, and others. What is just being a system that plugs onto dynamics a problem for you that in some cases you're not asking the client to potentially just change the way that they account for real estate? You're asking them to throw out the whole accounting system and start again.
Is it a problem? No, I genuinely think it's an opportunity, because it is a market that Microsoft are starting to really play and dominate. Is it a challenge that we don't sit on top of SAP or whatever? No, I don't believe so, because the market's big enough, and we believe we've backed the winner. The market is definitely big enough. So you are asking people, or people are deciding to rip out their accounting systems, potentially, certainly their property accounting system. But I think there's good reasons for them to think about doing that. But it comes back to what Graham was talking about, is it's the meaty marketing challenge we've got to meet head on. And as I say, I've only been doing this role for a few weeks. And there's a lot to think about, and there's a lot of planning and a lot of strategizing that we need to do, and we are doing right now, about how we maximize our marketing message.
Yeah,
I find that interesting, Kevin.
Are you selling a piece of software? Are you selling a big finance transformation?
We're effectively selling financial transformation, or what we call the target operating model transformation.
Yeah.
I've always believed, and I've been in the software industry since it started, pretty much, because I started out in mainframe hardware when there wasn't a software industry. You could only buy software from IBM or ICL at that point. Yeah. So I've been in the industry, virtually since the beginning, and I've always argued that it's about output. It's not about software. Software's almost, my CEO would kill me for this, but software's almost irrelevant. It's the output. It's what it does for your business that's important. It's a bit like, everybody talks about data. Data on its own is a series of ones and zeros. It's useless. It's information that's important. It's how do you convert that data to information to make it useful? And for me, software's exactly the same.
It's almost like if I had an army called the marketing army for you, I would almost like structure them in two battalions. One that basically was called make money, okay, and basically the other one would be save money.
Yeah.
And because you said it yourself, David, that the challenge is the people who are making decisions about these systems at the senior most level. That's what keeps or loses them their jobs. Yeah. If they shed a load of money, they're out. If they make a lot of money, big bonus time, and they still keep their jobs.
Yeah.
So basically, that it's a binary system for them as well. But I don't see at the moment, Yavica, doing that. I see very much when I look at it, this is what confused me when I was doing my research, which is different from Kevin, of course, because Kevin never does any research. So basically, I did a little bit of research, but basically, one of the things about the is that I get it says real estate, so I kind of understand there is software for that, but the deliverable is about saving and making money, keeping you from losing a load of money. And then I would structure within my battalion all the arguments for either argument, because at the moment, and what I would do is I would take people down through that, through webinars, through seminars, through face-to-faces, all that kind of stuff on both sides, almost separate, but every now and again there's a bridge between them.
Yeah.
But for me, the way in which the mind goes when I'm making this decision, it's not screaming at me that Yavica's got that current solution, but you're 4 weeks into your job, so basically there's a chance for you to do something about that. But for me, the way in which the mind works when you go through a website, I think, has to be what am I, why am I here, and what am I going to get out of it? And I don't see that at the moment. It's very corporate.
Couldn't agree more. And as I said to you, one of the first things I want to do, or I am doing or trying to do already, is make everything we do value-based.
Yeah.
Every message we put out there, every email we send, every phone call we have, every meeting we have should be value-based.
Okay.
And we're not there yet. We're not. I think we've done a lot of really, really good work on brand image. We've done a lot of really, really good work on getting the name out there. We're now at the stage of our development where we need to take that to the next level. And that's in terms of a marketing, a comms plan, a content plan, good sales execution plan. So, companies are like kids, right? Or humans. They mature over time.
Yeah.
And you mature through making mistakes and learning from them. And not that we've made huge numbers of mistakes, but we learn from what worked and what didn't work.
Or they get beaten up by bigger bullies.
And
I think you've got every chance, by the sound of it, to hold your own, and do what you said that you want to do, which is disrupt. I really do.
But a new kid in the playground, right? With a new kid in the playground.
Yeah, I think you are. I mean, you're an old kid in that playground because you said you've worked in it, and you're extremely old yourself. But
I am.
I mean, you're as old as Kevin, but
yeah, turned 60 3 weeks ago.
Did you? Oh, you're quite young then. You're quite young.
So now, looking across the accounting software space, there have been a lot of what I'd call old tech closed systems around.
Yeah.
A lot of emerging new tech, open systems, cloud-based systems coming along. Certainly, we've observed that it is easier to start from scratch and build in new technology than it is to take the old stuff and convert it into something modern. So while Graham's highlighting that, you've got those two big competitors that could play catch up. Well, they've got such a big reinvention job to do, haven't they?
Yes. And in any long established software company, there's a thing that they call technical debt. And they have huge amount of legacy technical debt that they've got to figure out. And I mean, the biggest change for most software companies that have been around a long time was moving into the cloud. And that took years. The next biggest change is going to be adopting AI, building AI into your solution set. And that's going to take time.
Can you, so I'm sorry to cut across you, David. What's going through my mind is your biggest way of defeating the other two is to solve the problem of time. Now, and the issue where I'm getting at is that if you could, in some way, shrink the normal move from one system to another time issue into a fraction of what, because their perception of that time might be 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yours might be. But if you were truly going to disrupt, you might have a much smaller deficit. I invested in a company recently called, I want to say it's QI or something. But the point is they're into the application of AI in real situations, a bit like yours in a way.
Yeah.
And one of their examples was with British Airways, where they were talking about the complaints procedure. And basically what they did is they actually shrunk that from, 6 weeks to 6 hours, 6 days. It doesn't really matter, by a huge amount. What if you were able to almost like disaggregate every part of the system that is required into seconds, into minutes and hours and days, as opposed to months and years and multi-years? All of a sudden, a lot of the arguments against adopting I'm not. This might become fanciful. You might, we can't possibly do it. Well, of course you can do it. Somebody can. It might be the next disruptor. So the issue is, can you perceive a situation where your solution can be implemented in under 5 months?
If you were looking at just the software, yes. The challenge is the amount of business process transformation that you need to go through. And
what does that mean in real terms? Sorry, forgive me, because that's a big word, and I'm not.
Yeah, it is a big word. It is, and you don't like big words.
I don't like big words.
Then the management consultant sitting here knows exactly what business process transformation is all about.
Big words, yeah, I know. Which is, you charge big fees for big words. For me, it's and nobody knows what you mean.
Truth in that, Graham.
Okay, so the challenge is, and this is where the projects can get lengthy, is we, as part of the implementation process, we almost have to look at every single business process.
Right.
Whether that's the accounts receivable process or it's the invoicing process or whatever it might be.
Right.
And then either map that process as is, so that it's exactly the same as it is today, or look at better ways of doing it. Now, where the time saving comes in is maybe not with the implementation process, and it will come down over time because we'll get more and better tools for doing it. Right? Yeah. And AI is definitely going to help with that, because you'll be almost, it won't quite go this smoothly, but be able to say, feed into AI, right, implement this.
Yes.
But I think where the big time saving comes is as you transform those processes and make them smarter and easier and more seamless and more automated, you save a huge amount of time at the back end once you go live. And that's one of the drivers for people doing this. Because let's take collections. Let's just take cash collection, accounts receivable processes. Yeah. That's a huge amount of work, because a big real estate company will have thousands and thousands of leases, so customers, tenants. So it's a big process. If we can cut that by 25 or 30 or 50%, that's a huge amount of money saved for that organization.
But isn't that just a question of getting rid of Doris and Mavis in the accounts department? No. And who basically have done it the same way for 500 years, and basically they don't want to change?
No. Well, there is some of that. There's some of that reluctance to change. But I think, the processes themselves are complex.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Kevin, you've obviously been in this position. You understand what I'm trying to get at.
I'm deliberately trying not to take on board the financial arguments to stay as you are, because I think in your best interests, if you accept for a nanosecond their arguments, I would, in your position, I would be pushing everybody I could find to solve those problems for me. Yeah, I can't solve it myself because
I'm thinking back to my last major employer, where across the group they implemented SAP.
Right.
And it was an interesting organization that had grown by acquisition. And they had maybe 6-7 different finance teams from 6-7 different businesses they'd acquired, all with different processes, and made a huge mistake implementing SAP because they bent the system to fit the existing processes, not streamline the processes to fit the systems.
Right.
We then came along later when the company was failing badly after the financial crisis of 2010. And we needed to save back up this money quickly. And we're thinking, 7 accounting teams. We don't have a shared service here. That's just a one accounting team.
Yeah. And one
shared service in place when you've got seven different ways of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very difficult. You want one way of doing it.
Yeah, agreed. And that is exactly, and using the SAP example is a good one, but that's exactly the driver for our clients.
Yeah. Imagine
to
that.
consider changing the way they've worked for the last 20 years.
We're running out of time, and to be honest with you, it's one of the most interesting podcasts we've done for a long while.
Thank you.
And the subject, not you. I mean, you're a Lancastrian, but no. Seriously, the challenge that you've got in the role that you've been asked to do is, for me personally, fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think you've definitely got it in you but I do think you need to almost like reach out into Yavica land and find your samurai, because effectively there's a bunch of people there, you'll probably know them all, who you need to sort of get round the neck and bring them into you and just say, this is a problem we have to solve. We've got 4 days. And, you're not going to be able to do anything else in those 4 days. You're not going to be able to go home or anything like that. But after 4 days, we'll have a damn solution that will work. And I think that's the kind of approach that you've got to take, because then all the rest of it, the marketing stuff that follows it is, frankly, and you could get an O-level person in to do that. But at this stage, I think you've got to be able to do something quite radical when it comes to strategy. And you're the strategic guy, but you've got to bring in other people to figure out how do I tipple over the market in this particular way. And I'm quietly confident about what you can do, but without doing the things that we've discussed. I think, with due respect, you'll be a player in the market and no more. Yeah,
no, I agree. I actually agree, and I think. Come back to this disruptive technology. If you're going to be really disruptive, you've got to be radical. You've got to think in a brand new way.
Yeah.
I nearly fell into the trap of saying think outside the box, but I stopped myself just in time. But you have got to think in a different way.
I think so. But it won't be just you, though, David. I mean,
no, not at all.
With your tender years, I mean, you basically, and you are a youthful person from my point of view. But the point is, you've been there and you bought the ticket and all that rest of it, t-shirts, the whole thing. But for me, it's a different strategy that's ahead of you right now. I don't want to bore on the subject. I already have done, but basically, all I would say is that you've been an absolutely fascinating guest today on the Next 100 Days podcast.
Well, I have to say thank you very much, because I've really enjoyed it. And the one thing I will say just to finish, and it comes back to what you were saying about the challenge ahead of us. I've not felt this energized about a role in 20 years.
Brilliant.
Which is a wonderful place to be at my tender years.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And who knows, maybe at some point you'll ask me, we can do a part 2.
Graham, really interesting to talk to David with that sort of company that's grown fast from very, very little, with no outside investment coming in, and talking about the development problems, the marketing problems, and so on. Lessons there that I think translate to any small business.
Yeah, I found it fascinating. From a marketing point of view, a real challenge. From a financial point of view, similarly, because it's the guy who's in charge of finances, got to see his way through, should I make a decision one way or another? And it's actually not just his decision. I think there's a bunch of other people in an organization who are going to make this decision, because it spans the whole lot. So I think he's got a real challenge on his hands, and I don't think it's just about websites and so forth and all those sort of things. I do think there has to be a well thought through, first of all, business strategy. Where are we going to get? Where are we going, and how we're going to get there? And then basically the bits in the middle, the marketing, the sales, and all the rest of those things. That's, I think, that's going to get them there, because he's got a big task.
And it reveals another interesting little point here. Just as we finished, I asked David a question I probably should have asked him when we were doing the recording proper, which said, who do you regard within your client organization as the main point that you're selling to? And David replied, it's the CFO. I had a conversation with another supplier of software into the CFO yesterday on the Grow CFO show. And we highlighted the problem that often when you're selling finance software in,
Mm.
CFO might be the buyer, but isn't actually the person sitting there with the problem. No,
Mm.
CFO's got a team of people beneath them that are doing stuff, providing the numbers arrive on CFO's desk. It's
Yeah.
fine. The pain points, the time that it takes to do it, the things that go wrong in the current systems are all sitting down with the members of the team, which makes that sales conundrum really interesting. How do you raise those problems and issues up to the level of the person that's gonna sign the check to buy it?
Well, I think the answer is make money, save money. I think that, and actually that's what, and inveigles the chief executive officer. But as I said in response to that particular question that you brought up, was that maybe NEDs are non-executive directors of the organisation, or chairman, basically. They're the ones who should and have got the responsibility of saying, have we got the right systems here? Are we following the right path? And I think if they're brought into the discussion, even if it's just to dispense with the idea, move on, because there's a whole bunch of people that you could actually be selling this solution to.
And
So
one of
yeah,
the
it's really
we
interesting.
talked a lot about saving time,
Mm,
but there's a very, very strong correlation between
mm,
saving time and saving money.
absolutely. Honestly, an absolutely fascinating podcast. We genuinely hope you've enjoyed the conversation and the abuse that we've thrown at a Lancastrian, which is richly deserved.
He
Let's
does have a
face it.
saving grace, though. He's a Lancastrian from Manchester that actually supports the right football team in Manchester.
Well, yeah, but they're the ones who've got all this Middle Eastern money and they win everything. So
Nothing wrong with Middle Eastern money.
yeah, I
And
guess
the only difference is they were allowed to spend theirs, we're not.
yeah, I know. What can I say? My heart bleeds for you. But anyway, on that bombshell, I've been Graham Arrowsmith.
I've been Kevin Appleby. Goodbye.
Goodbye.